Chapter 27. Next morning. I woke up with a cat next to me. At first I thought I was back home and started petting the cat. I pet it for a few minutes and it stretched. I wiped the sweat from my eyes before they could burn with my sleeve. I blinked a few times and the night's events caught up to me. I checked the tags on the cat's collar. The side opposite the numbers said SHTF, so I guess that was the cat's name. It was toasty warm in here now. I looked down to where I'd put the jerky and it was gone. Cat liked the jerky, I guess. The salt isn't great for them, but a little treat isn't going to hurt. I get up and check all my pockets. Everything was there, including the new set of keys. I shut the heat off and carefully tucked the warm heating panel system I had made into the office to tidy up. I grabbed another water bottle from the few I'd brought in with me. Then I grabbed a new bag of jerky and almonds to eat. I checked down at my phone and several hours had passed. I scanned through the radio channels a bit on the radio trying to find some news. There was no good news and no way I was going out there alone. According to what I could find over local chatter, people were saying the lights never came back on. The power never came back on, period, and nobody knew exactly why. The news stations and everyone local was broadcasting off generators or whatever reserve power they had. My phone had gotten back to almost full charge, but I noticed no more cell tower signal. I guess that was it for cell service, so I put my phone into airplane mode so I could still use it as a computer and camera. I hope the pissed off Core City looters would probably never have the attention span to get where I was. There would still be the occasional 5 or 10 people that wanted the thrill of smashing things and terrorizing people in their local area, though, or if they had a grudge about a specific place. Who knows? I tried to lay low, absorbing what I was hearing, but it wasn't long before the building had attracted unwanted attention. Something about how this place was destroying and murdering the environment or some crap. I looked down at them and they were all in black clothes with their faces covered. I'd seen them on TV for months, destroying everything in their path, and if you didn't 100% agree with their ideology, they would brutally beat you up the second they had the opportunity. The media had heavily censored this, but the live feeds of the events on the internet had told a completely different story. I honestly couldn't pick out as many specific topics through the sound-resistant windows. I got out my camera and tried to take some pictures and video through the window as discreetly as I could. My flash was always off by default because the flash triggered my migraines and felt like it lagged the camera. There was a time I'm pretty sure I thought I heard fascist thrown in there a few times for good measure and lots of other inflammatory rhetoric. Also, some environment, this and that. Maybe some of them got fired from here and hated the building for it. Maybe they thought this was a global company or something. It was probably a thrown together group of all the mixed things they were pissed off about. I guess they were out there yelling to see if they could spark any security to come out. Maybe a passerby would try to intervene or see if the cops were going to show up first. These groups usually attacked infrastructure first to lure people to them and then attack brutally and without provocation. I always tried to listen to these rants in the past to practice threat assessment. This is one of the event types that always ended up with violence, unfortunately. This definitely wasn't going to be a peaceful sit-in. I stopped gathering evidence and data and tried to come up with a plan. I turned the radio to scan through the pre-programmed UHF channels that I had noticed, which had sounded like private chatter earlier. I hoped the people that were operating on that frequency list would care about this developing situation. I kept repeating that there was a mob outside the waste, trash, fiercely recycling center, all in black, wanting to attack it. I would pause and let go of the buttons, then I would repeat it twice and go to the next channel that was pre-programmed in. There were 5 or so pre-programmed channels. The people outside had been alternating between nonsensical reasons that they were going to wreck the place. Then they were saying tons of other horrible things that they were going to do after that, and lots of fascist government. As they spoke, they would all waggle their improvised weapons and tools around with various hoots and hollers. For weapons, I could see it looked like they had ball-peen hammers, screwdrivers, and 2x2 lumber. Probably left over from a protest that they'd been at. I knew, though, that they also liked to carry carabiners that they use as improvised knuckles, and put nails in their 2x2s and all kinds of other horrible hidden surprises. Finally, building off each other, they reached the pitch to actually do something. It never takes them long after they've assembled, and they get pissed quickly and don't have a very long attention span. I could build this also, something very different from before. That feeling in the air. I set the radio aside and checked all my pockets one last time and went out to face them. I wasn't getting around them, and sooner or later they would have found me. I couldn't have them getting loose in the building because they could just ram their truck straight through the lobby if they really wanted to. So it was settled. I needed to hold them outside, at least 7, with 3 of them that I could see looking serious. Ideally, in this situation, there would be a leader I could take out and the rest would scatter, but these groups often didn't have a leader at all. When there were leaders, they were usually at the back and completely unapproachable. With that thought, I mashed down the button to the fence. I lifted it up, went under, set it down, and the fence's locks reset. I went down to the stairs into the lobby. Chapter 28, Courtyard. The ones that could have seen me early were blinded with the rising sun reflecting off the lobby's reflective glass exterior. The ones that would have heard me couldn't over their truck running, causing disruptive noise. So they didn't see or hear me coming out the first set of doors. Then I saw what they were doing. They were hooking their pickup to the door with chains to rip the doors off. Those doors would be locked with giant bolts that there was no way to open without more keys. So they were otherwise impassable by the attempted invaders. I waited until they were looking the other way and made my way towards the front desk. I looked around quickly and found what I was looking for. Underneath the desk had a pressure plate to unlock the front doors. I pressed the plate and the front doors unbolted. The group outside thankfully hadn't heard the doors unbolt over their coordinative procedures. I knew I had to be quick because opening the inner door might cause a reflection that would catch their eye. I opened the inner door and rushed the final few feet to the outer door. I kicked the second door open and smashed the closest guy to the building's door that was chaining the door up to the truck. The rest was a blur with my blade and sidearm. I cleared my clothing with my weak arm and drew my concealed sidearm with my strong, dispatching 2 next nearest me with multiple center mass shots. From there, with my weak arm, I drew my blade from concealment and began slashing my closest target again. He was the one I had initially stunned with the door. He tried to reach for my gun arm, but he could not get to it past the defensive slashing. At that point, I got blindsided with the truck and then trapped partially underneath it. SHDF the cat was suddenly at my side and lunged at a 4th one, taking them down as they had been advancing at me to finish me off. I only saw that carnage for a second before I had to look at other threats, as he was no longer one. I had really been planning on the Marauders running, but I think they'd worked themselves up to such a fervor that it had unfortunately passed that option. I wanted to switch mags now, as my shorter mag was either empty or close to it. I tried to get into my cargo pants to get my extended and full mag, but the truck impact really scrambled my brain and arm up. My left hand wasn't working well at this point. I thought if I rolled completely under the truck, I could think for a second and avoid getting curb stomped. So that's what I did. From the relative safety of under the truck, I could see that nobody was advancing, but nobody was retreating either. They were trying to surround me so they could pull me out. I think I was getting called a militia guy at this point from the attackers. I was trying to reload still and get my backup mag slammed in as I noticed the remaining Marauders regrouped and formulated a new plan. They were yelling at the driver that I was under the truck and to drive off me so they could get to me. I knew at that point that I was going to be losing my concealment in a few seconds. I finally rolled over to start my mag switch, and that's when I heard a big truck coming in fast, and that's when all hell really broke loose.